It's so freaking lucky to see you. I love talking with you. You are such a legend. And I think ever since I first met you, I mean, we started working together in 2010 or no, 20, I think it was about 2012. Right.
It was a long time ago.
It was a few years ago, let's just say, and
Yeah.
we had a lot of fun. Interestingly, I'll share with you a very brief story. So you and I, we created an app together, and it was quite prescient. I mean, it was like when not a lot of people were doing
That
apps.
was the first ever personal brand app in the country.
Dude, and you were way ahead of your time, and it was so much fun to work with because we essentially had a blank canvas and we were creating on the fly. And it took us about, I think, if I remember correctly, it was close to a year. It was like 9 months of design, development, consultation. The dev was a big freaking mission because we had to figure shit out on the way. And then, we got it live and it was rad. It was super fun and it worked really well. And I think you did, I mean, I presume you did really well with it. And then now, I mean, fast forward 12 years later, Heavy Chef is we're redoing our platform. We're creating an app,
Yeah.
and I kid you not, it took us to get the first working version 6 days.
Yeah. Well,
6 days to do this, and it was a little bit of vibe coding, some AI stuff, but
this
I
is
mean,
why
three people.
that's why I love being alive now. I think we've had the best of both worlds. Our generation, Fred, and I don't want to date us too much by talking about this, but we had all the cool things of not having to be completely technologically dependent. I mean, we climbed trees and fucking waded through rivers and shit. And our parents didn't really know where we were. And as long as we came home before the fucking lights came on in the street, we were fine, right? But
Yeah,
we had this amazing, it was the best time to be alive
yeah,
because we also have the benefit of modern technology, AI, things that just work much better, being able to not do the busy work so much that used to take up a huge amount of time and paper. I mean, that's terrific. I think it's fantastic. Being alive right now is absolutely the best thing.
yeah. I agree, and I think it has this kind of there's a bridge that's happening where we have a foundation. I think of, I mean, life is better. If anyone's ever read Hans Rosling, there's so
Yeah,
much proof to say that, you know what, like we should stop complaining and actually
yeah,
be a little bit more grateful for where we at compared to 150 years ago,
spot on.
um and yet at the same time we have, I mean, we spoke about a blank canvas. We've got the biggest blank canvas that's possible now. We can create things in a fly, and it's so accessible to us, to anybody. And with Heavy Chef focusing on micro businesses and micro entrepreneurs, the it's the great leveler. The
Yeah.
fact is anybody can compete against the big guys, and that's what's exciting for me. So, Gareth, I just catch us up quickly, because the last time we spoke was a few years ago, and I mean, we've spoken once or twice and we've done a few interviews, but I just want to get a little sense of the Real Network, just a bit of a kind of a sense of where you are at.
The Real Network is actually part of an advertising group, and the Real Network is basically two things. It's a content creation platform. So we have actual shows that we make and that are regularly produced weekly. We've got some amazing people involved: Pearl Tusi, Warris and PH. We've got Ben, who does his sports show on the Bounce with Sandile. We've got Kate Turkington doing a podcast with us, and Kate Turkington, I think she's the oldest podcaster in the world. Apparently there's someone a couple of months older, but she's 91 years old and she does these phenomenal shows. So we've got those. Then we've got we're building new shows all the time. My show is weekly on a Friday. It used to be 5 times a week. Thank God I've stopped doing that, because that was an absolute killer, waking up at 4:30 in the morning, Monday to Friday. It was horrible. And I know the audience were very pissed off when we did it, but I was also trying to make a decision about supply and demand. There was just too much, and there's so much content, whether you're podcasting or you're making videos or you're a YouTuber or you're on Twitch or whatever. There's too much for people to take. And I reckon that by throttling the supply, we would increase the demand. And that's exactly what's happened. We've seen about a 40 to 50% increase in the numbers since I've gone to one show a week. But that's the
Amazing.
content creation side of things. We also do content creation for brands. So they come in and we do white label content for, car brands, trade, liquor brands, gambling brands. They're all the rage at the moment in advertising, and they're the only ones spending an absolute fortune besides the insurance companies. So we're doing a lot of that. And then there's the distribution side of things, which plugs into our existing audience. Unlike any other advertising business in the country or marketing business, frankly, we've got a built-in audience, and they are the trial session for anyone who wants to attempt something new and innovative in marketing. So that's very exciting. And then obviously I'm busy with lots of other things too. So I'm not going to bore you with the details of those. We might get into them later on. But that's essentially what the Real Network is it's this really, really clever, innovative, and we're like everybody these days. There's a lot of AI involved in what we do too. The new season of Blind History, which we just launched, it's season 8. It's been tremendously successful. This one we've got animated videos that start each episode, where you almost feel like you're in Haile Selassie's palace in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. And that kind of thing was just not possible before. We would have had to hire a production company. It would have cost us hundreds of thousands of rands. Now I've got brilliant people here in the office who are able to put these things together in an hour or two. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, that's amazing. I see like there's a thread of storytelling with what you do. And I mean, I remember the tailor-made stuff and the blind history, whatnot. It's amazing. It's such a clever concept because there was no part of that was a hard sell. It was story first, and it was talking about, well, I mean, it was two people with a
love for history.
With a love for history, and just the two of you riffing off of each other, and it created a show out of the stories that I think all of us need to know. And I think there's something there. I mean, we spoke about AI. By the way, we have a Heavy Chef. We talk a lot about storytelling. So story is integral to building a business. So if an entrepreneur wants to try and cut through the noise, there has to be an acknowledgement of what is my story. This is the thing that makes me distinctive from everyone else, because there's so much out there. And so with the rise of AI and the fact that with a prompt, you can quite literally throw out so many different videos, and as Casey Neistat calls slop. I mean,
there's a lot
how
of
do
that.
we? Yeah, and so this is what I'm interested in, because it seems to be like, even it's the clue is in the name, the Real Network. How do we? By the way, did you call it the Real Network in order to? Okay, got it. Smart. I love that, and I think there's such a trend towards now authenticity, unplugging from the slop, and being able to identify things that are real. How should small businesses start to tackle that in terms of being able to rise above all this noise? I mean, do you have an insight for us in terms of what you've seen in your experience with the Real Network?
I see a question from Louis, which we'll get to just now. I haven't seen Louis in ages, but he's also an absolute champion. So look, far be it for me to tell any business how to market themselves, or how to use AI, or how to tell stories, because it's a very individual, subjective thing. Safe to say that somewhere in the next couple of months, I wouldn't even say it's going to take years, people are going to become very adept at spotting the difference between what is real and what is AI manufactured.
Yeah.
Already, I mean, you could see videos of, the Queen, the late Queen of England, Elizabeth II, rapping on the street with Jamaican guys in like Brixton, and clearly it's fake because of the subject. The content is nonsense.
Yeah.
It doesn't ever have happened. But I think we're going to have to use an eagle eye to determine. I mean, it's not far off that I can steal enough pictures. There is enough content of yours, Fred, online for me to be able to compose an AI avatar of you.
Yeah.
Use your voice. People are already doing this. They've done it to me. We've done it here as an experiment. And ultimately, the only thing that will be better than the best AI version of you is the idiosyncrasy, the eccentricity, the unpredictability, the humanness of you. And telling stories is more about that than anything else. The greatest storytellers in the world, in my opinion, are the people who you just don't know what's going to happen next, right? It's that old adage. Someone once said to me, if you were making a movie and you had, obviously in his heyday, you had 1,000 people running around, breaking chairs, setting fire to things, drinking, smacking each other around. It was just chaos on the scene. But you put Jack Nicholson in a chair on center stage, and he was just sitting there quietly. All eyes would be on him, regardless of what was going on around him. And I think that really good storytellers do a similar thing. My favorite comedian, Billy Connolly, is the kind of guy who he starts here and he goes everywhere. And within an hour, you've traveled the universe, and then somehow he brings it back at the end in a way that, you know, these prompts, and God bless AI, but it's still got a long way to go. When it says to you, thanks, that was a really good question. And I've tried to put mine into modes where it doesn't give me that. It's trying to create a connection with me. You know, that, what an interesting idea. I saw this horrific thing the other day, talk about storytelling, of how there's grief tech in America, where you've got companies. There's this one former Disney star who's launched this company where, you know, you can record your mom or your dad if you think they're going to die soon, and then it turns their voice and their image into a living avatar, and then you can talk to that every day. I mean, it's just disturbing on horrible, because ultimately what it's doing is it's not allowing you to deal with grief, and grief you have to accept, and having an avatar of your mom to chime into every couple of days is just avoiding acceptance. So there are things we're going to learn that will improve our interactions with each other and with technology, and there are things that are going to make us considerably worse, and it's going to be up to every single person to be able to figure out what that perfect balance is. It's a gray area. As far as brands go, what I will say to brands is that if you haven't made a mistake yet, if you haven't screwed up, or you haven't been called out on social media, you haven't been villainized, you're probably so boring that no one cares about you. If you have, how you deal with it is the most important thing. And mostly, dealing with it doesn't require a spin doctor or spending millions or coming up with a strategy or any of that. It's just ignoring it for like 3 days and it'll go away, because people do not have the attention span that they used to have, and they don't care about your brand as much as you do. So you may do something horrific. You may send out like poisoned sausages to all of your customers, and several children will die. And I can promise you the best advice in the whole world right now from me, don't listen to other people, listen to me, is ignore it. Just pretend it didn't happen and it will go away. If you haven't learned this in the era of Donald Trump, then all I can say is quiet, piggy.
This is, I mean, it is quite shocking how our psychology, like the psyche of humanity, has transformed so rapidly in the last 2 decades in terms of our attention spans. You know, I mean, somebody told me recently that the word in psychology, the word psyche means soul. And it feels like if there's no soul in the story, there's no soul in the message that we're trying to convey, people are going to notice it. They're not going to care. And our psychology is basically, we are constrained. Our attention doesn't seem to have the ability to be able to focus on one thing for very long anymore. So it begs the question: how do we retain people's attention?
I just want to, sorry to interrupt you. I want to say 2 or 3 things on that. First of all, on storytelling, like a lot of people also have to realize that they don't have any stories that are worth telling. Like, I really don't. The internet is flooded with people with their sob stories about how they had their uncle made them sit on their hand when they were 6, and now they're traumatized and they want to share their trauma with the world. And I'm sorry, but it's not that interesting. Oprah Winfrey, Dr. Phil, and before that, who was the guy before that? who started these talk shows where everybody bared their soul and told their deepest, darkest secrets and shared their pain. And it's just enough now. I think humans are overstimulated in that front.
Jerry Springer.
No, it wasn't Jerry. It was Phil Donahue. It was Phil Donahue.
Oh yes, yeah. I
recall. And they used to have people on with. I mean, Jerry Springer is a good example too, because he used to bring on these people whose lives were just horrible. And what we would all do, because it wasn't in the media. Remember, the media was this clean thing once. I'd say before mid-'80s, it was this clean thing where people all dressed in suits, they all spoke the same way, they all gave you information, they were perfectly credible, they never cried on screen, they never shouted, they never behaved badly. And in some ways, even though I've in South Africa been responsible for a lot of crazy shit on the air, in a lot of ways, I sort of hanker for a clean media, a media where it's not clickbaity and emotivism and driven by trying to get a reaction out of people, because it's become a human algorithm, just like the YouTube algorithm tells you to do certain things to get the shows to work. I would rather have authenticity, to be perfectly honest with you. And that authenticity sometimes means just conveying information. Someone said to me a while ago, women bond by sharing stories and by talking about people, right? That's so two girls who are friends will say, oh, you know, that other friend, blah, 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 I found out that she actually doesn't love the guy that she's with, etc. That stuff doesn't interest men at all. Men bond by sharing useful, practical information. So if I tell you you're holding the hammer wrong and I show you how to hold the hammer, you and I become closer. We become mates. You've taught me something, and then you will, in exchange, try to teach me something that you know. And for both men and women, this is very important, because it means that we need to figure out what it is that we're looking for in terms of content. If you go through my YouTube history, you're going to see history. You're going to see a lot of those videos where they crush things with a hydraulic press.
Yeah.
And mostly a lot of really puerile nonsense.
Yeah.
There's this Zimbabwean guy I follow now on Instagram who fixes things by making them worse. And he's got this music that plays in the background that I'm now addicted to. And I've got to force myself to actually not waste too much time on that stuff, because it's very tempting. And it's a nice distraction in 2025 when, you know, you're busy trying to run things, you're getting your life in order, you've got a list of things to do, and then suddenly you find yourself down the rabbit hole with one of those videos, and you can't get out. No one is impervious to this stuff. The most driven, smartest, most disciplined, most successful people you know are also sitting there going doom scrolling at 11 o'clock at night.
It's
terrible.
It's crazy. I mean, so there's a whole bunch of things I want to, and I see there's a bunch of questions coming through from the audience as well. What was the thing? It was like Jesus Gate or something. There was one controversy that you you were involved in, and it was something about you mimicked the words of Jesus or something like that. It was way back when I first started listening to you.
I see Charles, who I went to varsity with, on the call. Hey, Charles. There's so many controversies, and I say controversies because, again, you know, they were only a big deal because the media business was so small, and my voice seemed to carry a lot more weight than maybe people thought it should have, or maybe I was noisy in a way that really aggravated some people and really made other people happy. Who knows? But the Jesus thing was back at varsity, I think, where I did I think Mel Gibson was bringing out The Passion of the Christ, and I did an interview with Jesus where I was playing Jesus. Well, and then I gave him this like Israeli accent, and I said that anyone who comes to the premiere can get that I'll be turning water into wine outside, and you know the
but here's the thing.
The pizzas are sponsored by Jesus Crust or whatever.
So it was stupid funny, and it caused this huge ruckus. But the reality is that in today's age, it wouldn't cause a ripple. And I think, nowadays it feels like there's so much other stuff that tends to cut through the clutter. And what I want to know, I mean, there's a question here from Pierre Duplessis, and Charles, I see your question, so we'll get to you now. But Pierre sent through, he's starting a podcast and he's trying to build it up. And he's actually a pastor as well as a consultant, and he's quite an interesting guy, speaking of Jesus. But his question is about, is podcasting, i.e., YouTube and audio and video and all that, now about journalism, or is it about voyeurism? And I think what he's trying to understand is do we need that sort of controversy? Do we
Right.
need to ripple the waters?
You know what? There's so many things to unpack here. I'll try and keep it simple. If you want to start a podcast, my first advice is don't, because we got enough.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Pierre, the only reason you should start a podcast, and I mean this, I've drawn a moratorium. We're not doing any more new podcasts, right? And I'm being sarcastic, obviously, because I do think the wheat and the chaff will separate. And you're already starting to see that. The guys kind of in the
Sure.
middle who don't deliver a consistent product. Every week there isn't a new podcast because they kind of forget to do it or other things happen. They fall by the wayside. But there are only two reasons to start a podcast or any other kind of content creation. Number one, you're doing something that no one else is doing, that you really care about, by the way.
Yeah.
That is a niche interest that no one else is doing a podcast on. Do it because it'll be singular. It'll be different to anything that's out there. Or number two, if you're going to do it much better than the people who are already doing it. Because if you're interested in something as arcane as flags, and what the subject is vexillology, right? The study of flags. If that is something that you care about more than anyone else, and there isn't a flag podcast, do one. You'd be surprised. You have 20,000 people, if you just keep working at it, who will come and listen every week. And if you are going to do a subject that everyone else is doing, there's 1,000 amateur psychologists and motivational speakers who
Sure.
will podcast now,
Yeah.
and actors and people who want to interview because they think they've got
Yeah.
a tremendous
How to do
skill
your
set.
nails and your makeup and all that.
Go ahead, but make sure you're better than everyone else, because otherwise it is going to be the most disappointing thing you ever take part in. It is not a huge expense to buy the equipment, to set yourself up, but there is nothing more awful than looking at a room where you've bought a whole lot of cameras and lights and you've set it up and no one wants to talk to you, no one wants to listen to you, and what you're doing is just boring.
Mo just put in there, the flag podcast. So it looks like, what is the word? Vexillology, is that it?
Vexillology, yeah.
That's amazing that you.
It is another
you know
subject
that.
I have arcane and bizarre
You're
interests.
very esoteric. There are so many things that you know about. And I remember this speak, you even knew about the Vikings, and you gave me a little bit of background on my history. Okay, so Charles, can we get you to unmute yourself, sir, if you are ready, just to ask your question? If not, I do have another question that's lined up. Okay,
All right.
Charles, there you are.
Gareth, good to see you. It's been a while.
And you, my
So
friend.
my question is about preparation, right? So let's say if I interview somebody like Fred in the past, my way is to make sure that I ask him something that he's never been asked before. Otherwise, people can just Google. So I want to know about your preparation process. First of all, do you have a team doing preparation for you? Or how do you figure out what to ask them? So it will be original or at a different angle there's somebody never thought of.
Charles, the short answer is I have no idea, because I've got probably about 18 to 20,000 hours of interviewing under the belt. So it sort of just comes naturally now. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I'll be the first to admit that some interviews I've done are not my favorite thing, and I've wasted the opportunity to get the best out of people. But I don't think it's preparing questions or trying to get something out of people that they've never revealed before. Because if they've only just met you and you start asking them, about their kids or their mental health. I mean,
Yeah.
if someone sat me down and I'd never met them before and they started talking to me about that, I'd say, mind your own fucking business. Why would I open up to you and your podcast audience? I don't need this. And I think that's the case for a lot of people, especially if they've been interviewed a lot. Don't make it challenging. The most important thing you can do in an interview is listen to the other person. So start off, hey man, what's been happening in your life, or whatever. It can be very, very banal. And then instead of looking at what the next question is, or thinking about, I hope people are paying attention to that, or wow, that was a really cool thing that he just revealed. Instead of worrying about that, actually listen to him like you care about, because you should, his answer. And you'd be surprised how answers lead to questions, lead to conversation. The moment it starts getting conversational, the moment you feel, oh, I'm relaxed now, I don't have an agenda of things I have to ask someone. I'm really connecting with this person because they're interested in me, I'm interested in them, and we're just getting to know each other. I mean, that's back to Fred and why storytelling works. What humans love in an interview is that it feels conversational. I listen to, and again, I give credit to the guys who've been doing this for years. And I mean, whether you like them or not, people like Howard Stern are consummate interviewers.
Yeah.
You know, Howard used to do like ridiculous, silly stuff, make lesbians ride this machine that gave them orgasms and all that kind of thing. But when he sits down with someone like Billy Joel or Madonna or Mick Jagger, he gets the most insanely interesting answers out of them, because he's not pushed for time, like podcasters aren't pushed for time. And Rogan does this too. And you sometimes, you know kind of what the answer is, but you play dumb. And I don't do this because I don't go in with this is my interview strategy. I ask people and then I go, why did you do that thing? I kind of know, I can figure out more or less what the intellectual reasons are that someone might have done something, but you can never really forecast someone's feelings. And I heard Rogan interviewing Adam Carolla the other day, both of them accomplished interviewers and podcasters in their own right. And the two of them spoke for, it felt like it wasn't long enough, but it was probably about 3 hours. And for many of us, you mentioned attention span, and so did I earlier, Fred. If you can, and this is the power of podcasting, which is why I'll always be an advocate of it. And I was an advocate of radio for the same reason. You are going to get to live in someone's head for anywhere from 15 minutes to 3 hours. And if you listen to some of the, Dan Collins history podcast, that's like 8 or 9 hours. You could sit there without feeling bored for a single second. I mean, some of them you have to break up, while you're in the car or while you're not doing thinking work. But I think that is tremendous. And the ability that you have, before you would have had to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to get into a Harvard lecture with the emeritus professor of nuclear physics, right? Now I can get him into the University of Gareth, and my audience and I can benefit from talking to this guy about anything from dumb questions to really sophisticated questions. Come out of it and go, I just had a one-on-one lecture with the head of mechanical engineering. This is phenomenal. And I'm excited to meet almost everybody. There were, and I won't lie to you, there were interviews where I thought, who is this person? There was an Irish musician called Finbar Fury who came to the studio one day. And, my producers I was doing an interview every day for an hour, and I was doing 2 hours a show before that. And there was no commercial break, sport, news, traffic, any of that crap you have in radio. So it was 3 solid hours of talk. And we did that for 8 years. And this guy came in and I hadn't read the prep. And I thought, it's some folk singer. This guy's going to sit here and, he's got an interesting Irish accent. And I did all the things that I'd been trained and that I'd learned through experience to do. So we laughed and I joked about Ireland and he told me a story or two. And it wasn't a horrible interview. It was about a 6 out of 10, right? The sadness is, I listened to his song on the way home that day. A beautiful song called Sweet 16. And I was in tears on the highway. I've never heard such a beautiful song. And I thought, you fucking idiot. You've been sitting here with this guy this morning, and you wasted this opportunity to find out what was going on when he wrote that, how he put it together, who's the girl. Still, I actually wrote an email to his managers the day after, and I was like, I'm so sorry. I really screwed this up. I'm such a douchebag. And if he's ever, and he's old now, I don't think he'll ever come back, but if he's ever around again, I would love to sit with him.
What's his name? Finbar what?
Finbar Fury, Finbar Furey.
I'm most definitely going to do a deep dive on this dude after this. So, I mean, you're honoring him by talking about his story now, which is great. What I'm hearing from all of this, Gareth, is that in answer to Charles's question, we need to be prepared, but we also have to be authentically curious about who it is that we're speaking with. There has to be some kind of a skill, and Louis mentioned in his comment, like the idea of listening. We have to listen well, and I think that's something that is actually quite a rare skill in today's world. Not a lot of people know how to really listen well, and that doesn't mean preparing the next thing that you say whilst the other person is speaking, but trying to really dig deep.
When last were you at a concert or a movie?
I've been to a few this year. I mean, I was at the Pitbull concert in Europe.
Have you noticed that people are more focused on filming themselves and reacting to the people around them as if they're the performer than they are watching the movie or the artist or listening to the music or listening to the dialogue? People have become so self-absorbed and so convinced that everyone else is as interested in them as they are, that they've forgotten that something truly magnificent is happening. A once-in-a-lifetime experience is happening at a concert in front of them. They're seeing an artist who might never come back here, who might never perform live again, and instead they're doing this with their phones, filming themselves dancing, as if who's ever going to watch that shit ever again?
Yeah. And it speaks to this idea of what makes a good interviewer. We need to be invested in the person that we're speaking with. I mean, a Heavy Chef as well, as you know, we've had so many people walk through our doors, and we're always surprised. We had Professor Cass Sunstein in our midst, and I mean, that guy, he wrote Nudge, and oh my word, it was just the most unbelievable experience talking to one of the smartest professors in the world. And so from my perspective, I was just absolutely blown away by that experience. And again, it's like the University of Fred. I got this opportunity, and I was able to just connect with somebody, ask all these questions, and be present with somebody. And I think, Charles, from to your perspective, I know you're doing all this work, and I think it's really important to honor the person whose time that you are with, with that attention. I see, Louis, you had a question. Do you want to ask it live, sir? Do you want to get your
just
camera?
Before Louis comes on, I do want to give credit to my former business partner and longtime manager, Rena, because Rena told me once when we were setting up a show, and I said, that guest will be boring or whatever. And she looked at me and she said, there's no such thing as a boring guest, only a boring interviewer. And I think that's important. It's such a vital thing to realize. And sometimes I still forget it. So I'm not perfect. But everybody you meet has something to tell you, to teach you. Everyone. It could be a ludicrous and stupid little thing that you've always seen past it and never seen it. Or it could be a profound, life-shaping, life-shifting thing. And if you go into an interview with the idea that, okay, well, I just want to get this out of the person, who knows what you could be missing out on? If you go in with the idea of, okay, I want to meet you. I want to actually meet you. I want to know what makes you tick. Obviously, you're not going to interview like someone, you could interview someone off the street, and I have, and sometimes they are fascinating too. I remember when we started Cliff Central, I brought we did auditions, and there were people lined up down the street in Rivonia. And this one guy came in who was drunk, and he was an assistant to a dentist, but he was drunk on a like Tuesday morning. And I thought, man, am I glad I'm not going to your dentist practice today. You're going to screw up someone's, but he was very entertaining. Louis.
Do we have Louis on the line? I see his question though, so we can always just bring it up here. Louis asked he's actually got two questions here, both of which I think are really relevant. The first is, does one need millions of listeners and viewers in order to make money from content these days? I mean, what are the opportunities, and particularly given our audience at Heavy Chef? As I mentioned, we've got 43 communities around the country, and lots of them want to start broadcasting their very unique stories. So yeah, I mean,
you want to do it as a job. The bad news is, and I've said to a number of people who've asked me this question, everybody wants to know, can I monetize? Can I make my hobby? Can I make something that looks like fun and that is cool to do? Can I make that my main income stream? And again, the short answer is most people can't and won't. You have to be consistent as hell. You have to go through times where you are paying for everything out of pocket yourself, and forget about making money unless you're going to have hundreds of thousands of people. Cumulatively, you could over time, but I mean, just remember, this takes years and years of effort. And even the biggest podcasters can slip up and fall down the rankings, and then ultimately people just get bored with them, or they've run out of things to say. That happens too, once you've heard someone discussing the same subject ad infinitum, people do get bored. I will say though that the good news is, before I even say this, I always think there are three circles, right? The one is things you love doing. The other one is things you're really good at. And the other one is things that can make you money. And if you can push those through together, so there's an overlapping area in the middle, you're very lucky, because then you can have everything in the world. If you're good at something, but you don't love it, it's not going to work. If you are going to make money out of it and you're good at it, it may work, but it's never going to be the passion project. It's not going to be the thing that makes you jump out of bed in the morning and go, I can't wait to start work. So you have to have all three. And people look at podcasts and they go, well, there's a low barrier to entry. Everyone's doing this. I can do this too. But I think Charles's question hinted at something that is probably unspoken, and that is that not everyone can actually. Some people will just, with a minimum of effort from their side and the maximum from yours, make you look like an amateur. Yeah, it's like a great actor. I don't know what they do. I'm a terrible actor. I don't know how they do it, how they pretend so well. I can't even do those stupid interviews where they want you to walk and then announce your name on camera. I don't know how to do that.
Top style. Yeah.
I hate that stuff. I don't know how to do that. So there was a kid who interviewed me the other day, Matthew Karalos. He's got this hugely successful YouTube channel, visiting South Africa at the moment. He made me do all this stuff, and I was like, I just can't pretend. So if I act next to an actor, you're going to tell very quickly that I'm the amateur. And I think that's true for many people in podcasting, even though there isn't a central authority or a licensing system or a regulatory body, or you don't need all that stuff to know when you're seeing something good and when you're seeing something that's absolutely shit.
I think, I mean, just to pay you a compliment, Gareth, as long as I've known you, you're infallibly real. And I think the thing is, when it comes to playing a part where you actually have to say a script that's canned or prepared or not necessarily authentically you, it's I mean, I have a hint of it when we did that podcast together for Discovery a few years ago. And I don't know if you recall this, but they asked me to come in front of Adrian Gore's office and do exactly as you say, like we had to walk past the office and I had a few lines. It was literally maybe, I don't know, 30 seconds of audio. And I had to walk past and do the thing. And they gave me a script. I fudged it so badly.
No,
And the
no,
worst was Adrian Gore was there and he was just looking at me like, who is this Palooka, the guy that's representing
I have
Discovery?
to say, I'm very proud of those podcasts. In fact, I'm proud of almost all of them. I mean, I think if I listened to my radio shows back in 1998, 99, I think I'd die of embarrassment because they were horrific. But I'm
Those
proud of
podcasts were good, man. The
I'm proud of
Discovery
the way
ones, the
we've done
Healthy Business
together.
Show.
And I'm just as shit as you, if not worse. So
I was pretty bad. Let's just say I was good at the podcast and asking the questions and having the freaking banter. But sweet Jesus, I was terrible at doing an absolute like a script. And eventually, Adrian Gore stood up and he was just shaking his head, looking at me like, who the heck is this freaking dude? Okay, so we've got a bunch of questions. Yolandi, I see your question, which is an interesting one. Do you want to come up to stage and take the mic? Yolandi is, for those who are interested, Louis' sister.
hello, Yolandi.
Hey, Gareth. I'm all the operations director at Heavy Chef, not just nepotism. But thanks, Fred.
Thanks for reminding us.
So my question was with regards to something that you were saying around how you can make a mistake as a business or a brand and you should just ignore it because everyone will forget about it. And I think all the questions that are being asked here as well is like, how do I stand out with all the content pollution that we see online? And my question is kind of one that I feel brands and businesses should be asking themselves a little bit more, which is how do we hold each other accountable for bad behavior and for mistakes? Online space where we'll just forget about it in a week.
Yeah, look, first of all, I don't want this to be a blanket thing that you can always ignore everything. There are obviously things that need attention. I just think generally people overreact to, something negative trending on them on social media. I don't go on social media as much anymore. My life is much better. And you've got to remember that the number of people who make the noise are a small number of people, but they make an enormous amount of noise. And for a big brand to humble itself in front of some pick addict, homeless person on X is demeaning to their brand and to all it's worth. You don't have to stop every time some drunkard on the street corner starts shouting at you in your car. You don't have to stop and listen to him and go, well, I think, let's hear what he has to say, what feedback he has for our product. No, you don't. You can drive right on past. So I just want to clear that up because I don't want people to think it's like a blanket you can always just ignore and it'll be fine. That's not true. But what I would say is this accountability thing. I think you are accountable for what your product does and where it is, but you cannot be responsible for how it is interpreted by each individual. That's going to be impossible. And as a brand, I think it's massively important that you protect and you safeguard that brand as much as possible. You grow it wherever you can, but that you're not obsessed with trying to walk the middle line and be non-controversial and be safe the whole time. Safety and the lack of controversy also means the lack of character. It also means the lack of values. It means you're just happy to be ignored. And we have so many brands in South Africa that are just happy if another day goes by where no one notices them. And they just want to quietly, and this is because a lot of marketing managers are terrified. They're not so scared about making a bad marketing decision, but they are terrified about the consequences of a bad piece of messaging and the fact that they could be fired for that. They'd rather just quietly paddle, make sure that all the checklist things are done, that we've got that piece of outdoor advertising, that piece of print stuff, digital's being done this way. So they're too careful. And unfortunately, you have to stand for something or you're going to appear to be falling for everything. So I think it's a tough line to walk. I wouldn't say accountability is the big problem. Humans are pretty good at holding each other accountable socially, emotionally. I mean, if someone you know, if the president is doing something outrageous and ridiculous and stupid, and we all disapprove of it, we are in a country where we're able to say that that's the case. And usually politicians are the ones who react quickest because they know that the cost of not doing so is extremely high. For brands, sometimes taking a deep breath, waiting a while, letting the storm blow over. If you believe in your product and you believe in the people who work for you, you'll be okay.
That's a great answer. I have a bunch of questions, and two, I think, really good ones from somebody that you know. Bronwyn Williams just messaged me to ask a hyper relevant question, I think, and a pretty tricky one. But how do you grow an audience from zero?
Well, we're trying. We've actually been doing a show with Bronwyn too, about business trends and the future. And you know, she's a futurist, so she's very much involved in this stuff. It really, there isn't a formula for this. Sometimes something will go viral and you'll have, 900,000 downloads in the first 20 minutes. But to sustain that is very, very difficult because people have options, right? They don't have to. If you did a great episode last week and this week's wasn't so great, then they're not going to watch the whole thing. It's like walking into a movie. I'm one of those people who used to. I don't go to the movies anymore, but I used to walk in a movie. If it was crap, like Dude, Where's My Car? Do you remember that movie?
Yeah.
With Ashton Kutcher. I walked into that movie. I walked in. I had popcorn. There were four of my friends with me. The thing was on for like 5.5 minutes, and I got up and walked out. I was like, I could do better than this. I've always been that kind of consumer, and I think podcast listeners, there's again a dichotomy because you've got people who are tremendously attached to that content. I've got a playlist of podcasts I listen to that it's my diet every week. I have to have that content. Some of it's got to do with international politics, some of it's got to do with history, some of it's got to do with science. It's all kinds of stuff. If I don't have it, I feel like I'm missing out. And I've subscribed, paid money for many of these because they're worth it to me. They fulfill my quota of info and interest every week in a way that, frankly, very few people that I meet on a daily basis manage to do. So you can do that, but it takes, to build up an audience like that takes years, and there is just no shortcut because people can see through bullshit straight away. And if you're going to do something better than anyone else or do something no one else is doing, and you're going to be consistent at it, you will grow an audience. Look, it might not be millions, because maybe the subject matter is very niched. But if you want to do that and you're the best at that subject matter, isn't it worth having 20,000 people who absolutely love that? And isn't that better than having 1 million who kind of bob in and out because they don't really care, and maybe their friend passed it on to them in WhatsApp? Also for advertisers, and I keep appealing to people to pay attention because podcasting is the fastest growing medium in the world, has been for years now. In America, billions of dollars are going into sponsoring and paying for podcasts. Why?
Yeah.
Because you get to live in people's heads. As a brand, this is like solid gold, right? You get to be part of their most intimate world where it's just the person listening and the podcast, and then you as a brand get to come in and join. I mean, there isn't anything like that. No one's watching scheduled television the way they used to. They don't listen to radio ads. They don't pay attention. I have ad blockers on my browser and everything else, and on my phone. So where are you going to get people like me? The only place you can get me is podcasts.
Yeah, I think it's great. And again, it speaks to the realness, the authenticity of the medium. I have a question from Darren Fox, which I think is a very practical one.
I'm sure it's Fox because you just took the opportunity to swear, didn't you?
I'll never miss that opportunity. So Darren Fox, spelled Fox, says, what are the best Fox. I mean, I don't have my Danish accent on, so it is definitely Fox. What are the best platforms to host a podcast with subscription options and monetization options? So, I mean, I know you've got this really slick get up, and your studio is amazing, and I think you've taken it up a level. But if we look at some of the up and coming individuals who want to start trying out things and taking a more iterative approach, are there platforms that you've seen that are working well? Seems like every day there's a new platform.
You've got to be where people are. So you've got to be on Apple, Spotify. You've got to make sure you're on all the other podcast servers, the smaller ones. You've got to be on YouTube. You've got to do it all. I do not like the visual element of podcasting. I prefer audio. I listen to all my podcasts. I don't watch any of them, but that's the ones I listen to and pay attention to, not my own show. But we realized, like, people, they want to see this. So we had to build a studio, and it's almost like a mini TV show, right? Some people really don't like it. Some people love it, but we're giving you the option. You can listen or you can watch.
Sure.
And I don't like the watching part. I have to get dressed up. I can make sure that I don't look like absolute shit. I have to look at the camera every now and then. It feels like I'm back on TV, and I hated TV. I always loathed and despised TV. But I will say that it doesn't really matter. You have to be platform agnostic, because the listener stroke viewer doesn't care. For all you know, they are using an app you've never even heard of. But you have to make sure that you're available in as many platforms as possible. And try to simplify the process for yourself. We've got an amazing team here who make sure everything's uploaded, that we're streaming live, all of that stuff. But it shouldn't be difficult, and they've made it really simple. And I mean, in terms of equipment, you could buy a little desk. It doesn't have to break the bank. Buy a little microphone. That's also cheap as chips. And you can have a professional enough setup to be able to start tomorrow. I don't want to encourage it, but you can.
I watched the show that I think you did it this week, the one where you had Alan, not Craig, on the
that's ages ago.
Is it? It was the first one that came up when I watched it. So there's something with the algorithm that likes that one. But it was super funny because you I think Leanne came in and she was sick. You told her to sit at the far end of the studio. And I mean, I think again, there's something about that it's the viewing, but there is something. I agree with you, Gareth. There's something. I mean, the audio is amazing, and it's lean back listening. You can drive, you can run, you can be at the gym, you can do whatever. Also, at the same time as listening, video requires all of our attention, right? But there is something special about it comes through when there's a video on. The idiosyncrasies, your facial expressions. You were absolutely disgusted with Leanne coming in with this kind of like weird voice, and I think she had like strep throat or something. And the comedy value was great.
But Fred, that's how I am in real life. I mean, if I'm sitting in a meeting and someone starts coughing violently, I'm like, oh my God. I actually say, I vocalize. I'm like, Jesus, couldn't you do that outside? The hell's wrong with you? You get us all sick. Yeah. And at my house, for example, if I've got two signs up. One is tongue in cheek, the other is deadly serious. I say no fat people and no communists, right? Because the fat people break things and the communists steal things. And I won't have those people in my house. And I mean, my only rule for the podcast, I'll talk to just about anybody. But communists will invariably try and steal the camera on the way out. So you got to watch out for them. I am this way in real life. This is the same.
And we love you for it, Gareth.
It's too difficult to keep two personalities going. And I remember at campus radio, I just started. I was 19 or 18, and then we all had to choose our on-air name, right? And all my mates, because there were 3 friends of mine who I'm still very good friends with, who were all at varsity with me. We all met at the campus radio station, And the one guy chose this John Doe because it sounded like, you know, like a dead body kind of thing. And the other one was something else. I can't even remember what it was. And I was like, well, I think that's lame. I'm just going to go with Gareth Cliff. And I still get people going, is that your real name? I'm like, yeah, because I don't have to be a different person here and there and everywhere else. I'm the same. If you don't like it, that's okay. There are lots of other things for you to listen to. I actively discourage people when they say in the show, because it's a live show. So people will comment and they'll go, oh, you know, that interview was really boring. Then I'm like, well, you can leave. I'm not going to, you think I'm going to do jumping jacks to keep you? I care that much about your set of ears being, I'm not doing this show just for you. Get over yourself.
Dude, I think you've just answered. The next question was from Dean Horvitz, and that's not it's not an excuse to use the word whore, but it's Dean Horvitz has asked, as a podcaster starting out, is quality important or is content important? And I, you know, it's asking about a professional studio and the best mics and cameras and all that.
Question.
You've pretty much answered that in terms of, you know, the content needs to be authentic. It needs to be real. And you know, with many of our audience members, they're budget constrained. I would suggest starting out, you know, just get the content as good as you can on a budget. You know, and as you say, it doesn't have to break the bank. But as you know,
you're right. I mean, just start. You know, if Leonardo da Vinci was traipsing around Tuscany and later France, just thinking about, oh, I've got to paint this Mona Lisa. It's such a great idea. But he'd never actually painted it. We wouldn't have had one of the greatest artworks ever. So just start it. If you really want to do this, I'm not going to put you off. I'll try, but I'm not going to put you off. Just do it. Give the first episode a go. And if it's absolute toilet, maybe you think you can improve, then try again. If, you know, after 20 episodes, 5 people have watched and you've had to tell them to, just stop.
And if you want real feedback, just send it to Gareth.
No, don't.
I'm pretty certain.
My Idol's audition days are over. I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear you sing. Don't force me to listen to your podcast. I don't want to know.
This is a sad day, Gareth, that you're not going to do live television anymore. I'm certain that there will be a time that you'll be tempted back.
Actually, there might be something interesting in the works, but I'll tell you about that closer to the time.
And you know, I mean, this is a good time to break the news. Okay.
No.
Okay. I know you well enough to
but I can promise
I
can promise you that it won't be a talk show, and it won't be an interview show, and it won't be a news show, because that stuff I feel has become so pedestrian in South Africa. And you kick over a rock and there's a political analyst under it, and there's someone spouting forth about politics, and really very few of them know anything. You don't emerge from the end of a discussion like that, with obvious exceptions. People like Frans Cronje, people like, you know, I love Rob Hersov. We're doing this Truth Report thing together, which is growing and growing. And we've got some amazing people. A guy called Sama Sambit, who's just one of the most talented kids, and you just put a camera on and he just delivers. He's phenomenal. People like that, I obviously, you know, those are the people that I want to pay attention to as well. But I just feel like politics, because again, it's such a low barrier to entry, right? Everyone can have an opinion about politics. You don't have to have any reading under the belt. You don't have to have studied anything. You don't have to have met any of the people in question. You don't have to actually have put the policy documents in front of. They're just like, oh no, I think the president's an asshole because, and please, clickbait. Do me a favor.
Well, I love the idea of, you know, pick something that's unique, something that's super interesting to me as, you know, as a human, that I'm genuinely curious about. If it's World of, I saw your comment, World of Flags, you know, or it reminds me, there's a guy in the 2000s when I was really big into marketing called Al Ries, and he wrote a book called The 22 Immutable Laws of Branding. And the first rule is like, be number 1 or 2 in your category. And rule 2 is, if you cannot be number 1 or 2, create a new category. And I loved that. It was just this idea of
Yeah.
try and identify where you can be number one or number two, because number two is not actually so bad. I got another question from Bronwyn, and I'm conscious of time. I know I don't want to waste
Sure.
anybody's time in the call and whatnot. So this is second last question, if we can squeeze it in. Bron just sent a zinger, and I think it's a tricky one. What's more important, consistency or showing up only when you have something actually interesting or important to say? So consistency or showing up.
Don't they go together? I mean, you know, showing up, obviously, again, I got to credit Rena with this. She said that most of success is showing up. And I do agree with that. Like, you've got to actually get it done, execute, right? And I think consistency and showing up go together. They're the same, they're of the same kind of discipline. If you're going to do it well, or don't bother.
Yeah. I think what is being alluded to here, Gareth, is that some people just show up and then it's not necessarily of a high quality. So
you'll be discovered very quickly. Again, the audience is not stupid, and people they just won't. Your time is the most valuable thing you have. And again, like, it is the greatest compliment, and I am eternally grateful, despite the fact that I tell some people just tune out and go and listen to something else. I mean with every fiber of my being that the people who have been listeners to my show, viewers, partakers, engagers in the process over the last 25 years of media, I have such love for these people, because I know them and they know me, and we've walked a long road together. And they will tell me, the ones who are constructively critical of something that's going on, I will always pay attention to. That stuff I read. I get emails, I get messages, and I'm like, ooh, that's actually true. We really screwed up there, and you know, we shouldn't have done that. And I pay attention to that stuff because it's a real relationship. Think about it.
Yeah.
I'm living in their heads for like hours in a week. That's a phenomenal thing.
Yeah, we feel like we know you. Okay, last question. Gareth, we asked this of everyone. What's your secret ingredient?
Oh, you see, you've thrown me with the cooking analogy. And the funny thing is, someone saw that I was going to do a thing with Heavy Chef this week, and they're like, "Oh, what are you going to cook?" I was like, Jesus, okay, you're not paying attention.
It doesn't help that I look like Gordon Ramsay, but that's another story.
It certainly doesn't help that I am not a chef. Some people are so good at that stuff. I don't even know where the kitchen is in my house. I know I've been there once or twice, but it's not a place I frequent. The secret ingredient. Again, this is such a subjective thing. But for me, curiosity is the most valuable thing to have. I will be, until my dying day, endlessly curious about every subject on earth. I for some reason, as a kid, one of the things I always had in my room was an old set of Collier's encyclopedias, which I think my grandmother had. And I would pick up one of those 24 encyclopedias, and I would open it up in a random place, and I would discover a new word, a new thing, a new animal, a new place. And it just never got boring. And the internet is the same. You can type in anything and you will never get bored. And if people think they're bored, it's probably the same as the interviewer-interviewee situation. There's no such thing as a lack of facts and information out there. It's that you don't know what to ask. The same goes for AI, right? So curiosity, man. That's all I have to say.
I love it. Gareth, what a treat. And I think your last answer gave us a real perspective into the quality that is required to be able to do the job that you do. And thank you. So you've been you're a national treasure, and we love that you're still shaking trees and being maybe less controversial than in the past, but it's always such a pleasure to chat with you.
I'm just getting old, and
Dude,
as you get
you're not getting old.
No,
you're just
I am
having fun.
I'm not complaining about it. I'm saying as you get older, it doesn't give me the thrill that it used to upset people or say something just because it needs saying. Like you really gotta draw it out of me now. So thank you, Fred.
Yeah. You're welcome, and thanks for your time. Thanks for your time, everybody here, and I hope everybody who watches this in the community really enjoys it. And please send any questions to fred@heavychef.com. Gareth, you're a freaking star. Love you, brother. And
Thanks,
take
everybody.
care. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Cheers, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.